Sometimes, silence is the loudest answer.
I've witnessed plenty of awkward social situations, but nothing prepared me for what happened at my 15th wedding anniversary celebration. My wife Jennifer stood up with her champagne glass, smiling at our 80 guests, and announced, "To the ATM I married who'll never be my actual soulmate." The entire ballroom went silent. You could hear people's breathing. Then came the uncomfortable laughter from her friends while everyone else looked mortified. I sat there completely frozen, my brain short-circuiting like a computer that just got a virus. Part of me wanted to flip the table and storm out dramatically, but instead something weird happened. I became unnaturally calm, like my body decided that since I was already in hell, I might as well be civilized about it. So I reached into my jacket pocket slowly and pulled out a small brass key with a tag reading Vault 47D. I placed it gently on the white tablecloth next to the untouched desserts. That tiny metallic clink might as well have been a bang in that silent room. Jennifer was still standing there looking pleased with herself, probably thinking she'd delivered the ultimate mic drop moment. Her girlfriends were still giggling behind their hands. But then I noticed her father, William, freeze mid-clap. His hands just stopped in midair like someone hit pause on a remote control. I watched William's eyes land on that brass key and the small note attached to it. His face drained of color faster than water down a bathtub drain. He went from flushed to ghost white in about 3 seconds. His mouth opened and closed silently before he finally croaked out, "Jennifer, please tell me you didn't." Those 5 words carried the weight of a man who just realized his daughter had screwed up catastrophically. Jennifer's confident smile faltered slightly. She glanced at her father, then at the key, then back at me. For the first time that evening, I saw something flicker in her eyes that might have been concern or fear. The dawning realization that she'd made a terrible mistake, but it was too late. Way too late. The key was on the table, and her father looked like he was about to have a medical emergency into his lobster bisque. I stood up calmly, adjusted my jacket, and started walking. Not running, not storming out, just walking like a man who had somewhere better to be. I passed the untouched dessert trays, the tacky chocolate fountain Jennifer had insisted we needed, and the ice sculpture of 2 swans that was already starting to melt. I walked past Uncle Jerry, who was trying to sneak wine bottles into his jacket, and honestly, good for him. At least he was stealing from me instead of publicly humiliating me. At the entrance, the young valet gave me an oblivious smile. "Car, sir?" he asked cheerfully. I stopped and looked at him. "No thanks," I said with a bitter smile. "I prefer walking after being publicly destroyed." The kid's smile froze and his eyes went wide. That's not in the valet training manual. I walked down the hill toward my truck, a dark blue Ford F-150 that Jennifer always hated. She wanted me to buy something flashy, a BMW or Mercedes, something that screamed wealth. But I'd kept the truck partly because it was practical and partly because it was mine, untouched by anyone's criticism. When I reached it, I smiled for the first time all night. The license plate ended in 47D, the same combination as the vault key that had just made William's face go pale. Was it excessive? Absolutely. Did I care? Not even a little bit. I drove to the Riverside Motel 80 miles away, a cheap place charging $49 a night with brown carpet designed to hide decades of questionable stains. The room had a view of a half-frozen pond with dead reeds sticking up through the ice. Very romantic. The heater rattled like it was possessed, but it produced some heat. And that was enough. I hadn't brought luggage or weapons or anything dramatic. Just one black leather briefcase that looked completely out of place in that dump. Inside were 3 folders. Plan A, divorce. Plan B, eviction. And Plan C, nuclear. I was saving that last one like fine wine. I pulled out my phone and called Miss Patricia Hamilton, the 73-year-old estate lawyer who'd helped me set all this up. She answered after 2 rings. "I was wondering when you'd call," she said without preamble. "I take it the toast happened?" She called me an ATM who'll never be her actual soulmate in front of 80 people, including her father, I confirmed. Miss Hamilton made a sound that was half laugh, half snort. "Well, that's certainly grounds for activating the clause. Did you leave the key?" "Left it right next to the dessert." William looked like he was having a stroke. It was beautiful. "I bet it was," she said, smiling through the phone. "So we're doing this." "Activate 47D, I said calmly. "Start the timeline." She didn't ask why. That's what I loved about lawyers like Miss Hamilton. They don't need emotional backstories. They just need facts, dates, and signatures. "I'll file the paperwork Monday morning," she said. Full execution within 45 days, assuming no complications. You know she's going to fight this. Let her try, I said. You've got 14 months of preparation. I've documented everything. And she signed that prenup while watching YouTube videos about decorating. We have the browser history to prove it. Miss Hamilton laughed, a full belly laugh. I've been practicing law for 47 years, and this is going to be the most satisfying case I have worked on in decades. Let me take you back 2 years, before the toast, before the key, before William's face went pale and Jennifer's world started collapsing. It was a Tuesday afternoon. Jennifer and I were in our home office, me handling paperwork while she sat on the couch absorbed in her phone. Babe, I need you to sign these, I said, gesturing to the stack of documents Miss Hamilton had prepared. Estate planning stuff, boring adult things like wills and trusts. Jennifer mumbled, not looking up from her phone. I could see the reflection of her screen, Pinterest, of course. She was looking at pictures of fireplace mantles decorated with fake flowers. Jennifer, this is kind of important. We need these notarized by Friday? Yeah, just put them on the coffee table. I'll sign them, she said, waving vaguely in my direction without breaking eye contact with her phone. Do you think we should redecorate the mantle? I'm thinking rustic farmhouse vibe. I stared at her for a long moment. Here I was trying to handle serious legal documents, and she was concerned about fake flowers. Sure, honey, I said, because arguing was futile. But seriously, can you please sign these? Fine, she sighed dramatically, like I was asking her to donate an organ instead of just signing documents. She finally looked up, set down her phone with reverence, usually reserved for religious artifacts, and walked over to the coffee table where I'd laid everything out with those little yellow sign here tabs. Now here's where it gets interesting. I'd been working with Miss Hamilton on these documents for 3 months. 3 months of careful planning and strategic wording. Most of it was standard boring estate planning language, but buried on page 47 of a 63-page document was something special. Clause 19b, in official legal language that took 3 paragraphs to say what could have been said in 1 sentence. The clause stated, in the event that either party engages in public acts of humiliation, degradation, or deliberate disrespect toward the other party in a social setting with witnesses numbering 10 or more persons, said behavior shall constitute grounds for immediate nullification of inheritance rights, asset claims, and spousal benefits. Translated, if you publicly humiliate me in front of a crowd, you lose everything, your inheritance, your claim to shared assets, your spousal benefits, all of it, gone. It was beautiful. It was diabolical. And the best part? The clause didn't require cheating or theft or criminal activity, just disrespect, public disrespect, the kind of casual cruelty Jennifer had been dishing out in small doses for years. Miss Hamilton had questioned whether it would hold up in court. It's creative, she'd said, but potentially challengeable. What constitutes humiliation? Who decides if something crosses the line? That's why we need measurable criteria, I told her. Number of witnesses, public setting, clear intent to demean. And we document everything. Every snide comment she makes in front of people. Build a pattern so when the big one happens, and it will, we have evidence this wasn't one-time behavior. So there was Jennifer, speed reading through 63 pages of legal documentation like she was trying to set a world record. Except she wasn't really reading. She was skimming. Barely even that. Her eyes glazed over at all the legal jargon. This is so boring, she complained halfway through. Why do lawyers use so many words? It's to protect us, I said mildly, watching her sign page after page without reading a single word. Make sure everything's legal and binding. She was on page 46 now. 1 more page until clause 19b. My heart rate picked up slightly, but I kept my face neutral. Would she actually read it? Would something catch her eye? Page 47. She flipped to it, found the yellow tab, and signed without hesitation. No reading, no questions. Her signature, Jennifer M. Davis, looped across the line in blue ink, legally binding her to terms she didn't even know existed. There, she said, dropping the pen on the table. Done. Happy now? Can I get back to my mantles? Very happy, I said, gathering the documents carefully. Thank you, honey. Jennifer was already back on the couch, phone in hand, scrolling through more farmhouse decor pictures. We should definitely get those flowers, she said absently. Sure, babe, I said, sliding the documents into my briefcase. Whatever makes you happy. And that was it. That was the moment that sealed her fate. 2 years before she'd stand up at our anniversary party and call me an ATM, She'd signed away her future while shopping for home decor. She'd played herself while watching videos on how to arrange fake flowers. I took those documents to Miss Hamilton the next day. She notarized them, filed them, and locked them in her safe. "Let's hope you never have to use this," she'd said. "Let's hope," I'd agreed. But I knew better. I knew Jennifer. I knew her casual cruelty, her need for attention, her complete lack of awareness about how her words affected people. It wasn't a matter of if she'd crossed the line. It was when. Meanwhile, back at the party, William was having what doctors would probably call a significant cardiovascular event. His hands were shaking, his collar felt too tight, and that brass key was staring at him like it contained the secrets of his imminent financial doom. William wasn't stupid. You don't build a successful commercial real estate empire by being an idiot. He recognized power plays, and he absolutely knew that a brass key appearing at the exact moment his daughter publicly humiliated her husband wasn't a coincidence. This was a message. William had always underestimated me. From the moment Jennifer brought me home 15 years ago, he'd sized me up and found me adequate. Not impressive, not remarkable, just adequate. A decent guy with a decent job who'd probably treat his daughter decently. I wasn't flashy, wasn't from old money, didn't golf at the country club. I was just some regular guy. What William didn't know was that adequate can be a very effective disguise. While everyone was busy underestimating the quiet guy in the corner, the quiet guy was paying attention, taking notes, planning. The party was still going, sort of. Guests were clustering in small groups, whispering, trying to figure out if they should leave or stay. Jennifer was still standing there looking confused that her big moment hadn't landed the way she expected. Her friends were probably telling her she was brave and stunning, but William wasn't paying attention to any of that. His entire world had narrowed down to that key. His fingers trembled as he reached for it. He picked it up, felt its weight, and read the note I'd carefully prepared. "Vault 47D, First National Bank, Downtown Branch. You might want to check this before Monday." Before Monday. That was the kicker. William was a businessman, and businessmen understand deadlines. Before Monday meant approximately 36 hours to fix whatever catastrophe was about to happen. William stood up so fast, his chair tipped backward and clattered against the marble floor. "I need to go," he said, his voice tight and strangled. "I need to go right now." "Richard, we're at our daughter's anniversary party," his wife Eleanor protested. "You can't just leave." "Watch me," William said, shoving the key into his pocket and making a beeline for the exit. No goodbyes, no explanations. Just a 62-year-old man practically running through a ballroom full of confused guests. William made it to his Mercedes and drove to First National Bank, breaking approximately 47 traffic laws in 18 minutes. It was Saturday evening, so the bank was closed, but William was a platinum account holder. He called Thomas Garrett, the bank manager, and demanded immediate access to Vault 47D. "Mr. Davis, it's Saturday evening," Thomas protested. "The vault isn't staffed." "I don't care if you have to open it with a blowtorch," William interrupted. "I need access immediately. This is not a request." 40 minutes later, Thomas showed up looking rumpled and annoyed. They walked through the empty bank, their footsteps echoing in the marble lobby. Thomas led him down to the vault room and used his master key along with the brass key William provided. The small door swung open with a quiet click. Inside were 2 documents. Just 2. No cash, no jewelry, nothing people usually keep in safety deposit boxes. Just 2 pieces of paper that represented the complete dismantling of everything William thought he understood about his son-in-law. The first document was a notarized buyout agreement. My 49% stake in Davis Commercial Real Estate had been sold. Not to a competitor, to a charitable foundation, the Anderson Foundation specifically. The sale price was listed as $1. $1 for a stake worth approximately $8 million. William's vision blurred. He had to lean against the wall to keep from falling over. $8 million given away for $1. With hands that felt like they belonged to someone else, William unfolded the second document. It was a will. My will. It very clearly stated that in the event of my death or legal separation from Jennifer, all remaining assets, properties, and holdings would transfer not to my wife, not to her family, but to Kyle Anderson, age 24, veteran, sole beneficiary of the Anderson Foundation. William read it twice, then 3 times. Who the hell was Kyle Anderson? Why was some random 24-year-old kid inheriting everything? And how long had I been planning this? His face was ash white. His palms were sweating through the expensive paper, and somewhere, probably at that motel with the half-frozen pond, I was sleeping peacefully, knowing that William had just discovered exactly how much he'd underestimated the adequate son-in-law. Kyle Anderson. The first time I met him, I was pretty sure he could snap me in half like a pretzel stick. The guy was built like a Greek statue given a military haircut, 24 years old, with posture so perfect it made my slouched accountant posture look like a question mark having an existential crisis. We met in the conference room of a cheap hotel called the Restwell Inn. Beige walls, beige carpet, beige everything, with a long table and squeaky chairs. I got there first, wanting to be the one waiting. When Kyle walked in at exactly 2 p.m., not a minute early or late, he was wearing his dress uniform. Navy blue jacket with medals and ribbons, creases in his pants sharp enough to cut paper, shoes so polished I could see my reflection. "Mr. Davis," he said, his voice clear and direct. "That's me," I said, extending my hand. "Though you can call me whatever you want. You're about to inherit my life savings, so formal titles seem silly." He shook my hand with a firm, respectful grip. "Kyle Anderson, sir. I have to admit, I'm confused about why I'm here." "Join the club," I said, gesturing for him to sit. "Want some coffee?" "I'm fine, thank you, sir." "Stop calling me sir. You're making me feel ancient." That got the tiniest hint of a smile. I sat down and looked at him for a long moment, trying to figure out where to start. "Your father saved my life in 2005, I said finally. "Did you know that?" Kyle's expression shifted slightly. "No, sir. No, I didn't know that. My father died in 2006. I was 10 years old. I don't know much about what he did before then." "He was a good man," I said, and I meant it. "We worked together on a construction project in Denver. I was young, stupid. Thought I knew everything about electrical work. Your father was the foreman. He was patient, didn't humiliate me, just quietly corrected my mistakes." I took a sip of coffee. "There was an accident, faulty wiring. I was about to connect a junction box that would have sent enough electricity through me to eliminate me. Your father saw it, tackled me out of the way. We both hit the ground hard, but we were alive. He saved my life. 6 months later, I heard he died. Heart attack. 41 years old." Kyle's jaw tightened. "He was 41, dropped dead in the kitchen making breakfast. My mom found him." "I owed him everything," I said. "I tried to find your family afterward, tried to help, but you'd moved and I lost track. Then about 2 years ago, I hired a private investigator. Took him 6 months, but he found you. Marine Corps, 2 tours in Middle East, honorable discharge, currently working as a security consultant." "I just did my job," Kyle said, looking uncomfortable with the praise. "Your job involved getting shot at," I said, "so let's not downplay it. Point is, I found you and realized I finally had a chance to pay back the debt I owed your father. Not to him directly, but to you, his son." "I don't need charity," Kyle said, steel in his voice. "Good," I said, "because this isn't charity. This is a business transaction. I'm not giving you money out of pity. I'm giving it to you because, unlike Jennifer, you won't spend it on throw pillows and champagne fountains." That got a real smile out of him. $8 million, I said. "Give or take, pending final paperwork. Your father saved my life. That life earned $8 million. Seems only fair his son gets it instead of my ungrateful wife." There was a long silence. Kyle sat there processing, his face cycling through shock, confusion, disbelief, maybe anger. "Why me?" he finally asked. "Why not donate it to veterans' charities? Why not just burn it?" I leaned forward. "Because, Kyle, unlike Jennifer, you won't spend it on decorative flowers and rustic metal buckets. Unlike her friends, you won't use it to fund your Mean Girls reunion tour. Unlike her family, you'll actually appreciate it. And unlike every person at that anniversary party laughing while my marriage imploded, you have actual integrity." He laughed, a nervous, uncertain sound that surprised him as much as me. "Ah, that's insane." "Yeah," I agreed. "It really is. But so is spending 15 years married to someone who views you as a convenient ATM. So is paying for your own anniversary party where you get roasted. Insanity seems on brand at this point." "What do I have to do?" Kyle asked. "Nothing," I said. "Just be a better steward of that money than Jennifer would have been, which is an incredibly low bar. Use it for something good. Start a business, help other veterans, buy a house, whatever you want, it's yours." "This is crazy," Kyle said again, but I could see acceptance beginning. "Welcome to my world," I said, raising my coffee cup. "Population us, apparently." We shook hands again, and this time it felt different. A real connection. Kyle Anderson, 24-year-old ex-Marine, already a better person than 15 years of marriage had produced. Back in the city, approximately 72 hours after the toast, Jennifer was having a come-to-Jesus moment. Except instead of Jesus, it was Greg Morrison, attorney at law, and instead of salvation, he was offering her a front-row seat to watching her life circle the drain. Greg's office was downtown, all floor-to-ceiling windows and minimalist furniture. Jennifer stormed in without an appointment, no phone call ahead, just barged past his assistant and threw open his office door hard enough that it bounced off the wall. She was a mess. No lipstick, which was shocking because Jennifer never went anywhere without lipstick. No pearls, which she normally wore even to the grocery store. Her hair was in a messy ponytail with chunks falling out. She was wearing yoga pants. Jennifer, who once told me yoga pants in public were a sign of societal decline, and an oversized sweatshirt. She looked like she'd been crying, her eyes wild and desperate. "Stop him!" she demanded, slamming her hands on Greg's desk. "You have to stop him! This is insane! This is illegal! There has to be something you can do!" Greg didn't flinch. He'd been practicing family law for 23 years. He'd seen every flavor of marital meltdown. He set down his pen, folded his hands, and looked at Jennifer with the expression of a man getting paid $400 an hour to deliver bad news. "Good morning, Jennifer," he said calmly. "Please have a seat." "I don't want to sit," Jennifer shrieked, but then immediately sat down anyway. "Greg, he's taking everything. Everything. The house, the business, the accounts. He can't do this. Tell me he can't do this." Greg reached into his desk and pulled out a file. The file. The one I'd been working on with Miss Hamilton for 2 years. He slid it across the desk toward her. "Your husband can do this," Greg said, his tone neutral. "In fact, he already has. Everything you're seeing unfold is completely legal and binding. You signed the agreements, Jennifer, multiple times, with witnesses and notarization." "I thought those were home renovation forms," Jennifer sputtered. Greg raised one eyebrow, the lawyer equivalent of screaming, "Are you kidding me?" He opened the file and started flipping through pages. "Jennifer," he said slowly, "these documents are 63 pages long. They contain legal terminology. They have my letterhead on every page. They were delivered by a notary who watched you sign them. At what point did you think you were agreeing to renovate a bathroom?" Jennifer's face flushed red. "I was busy. I was planning the anniversary party. I had a million things on my mind. I didn't have time to read every single word." "That's not how legal documents work," Greg interrupted, frustration creeping into his tone. "When you sign a legal document, you're certifying that you've read it, understood it, and agree to its terms. Whether you were busy planning a party or watching paint dry is irrelevant. You signed. That's what matters." "But I didn't know what I was signing," Jennifer insisted. "He tricked me. He deliberately gave them to me when I was distracted. That has to count for something." Greg leaned back in his expensive chair. "Let me ask you something, Jennifer. When your husband asked you to sign these documents, did he hold a tool to your head?" "What? No, of course not." "Did he threaten you, coerce you, force you in any way?" "No, but..." "Did he prevent you from reading the documents? Cover up parts? Rush you?" Jennifer opened her mouth, then closed it. "He gave them to me when I was looking at Pinterest," she said weakly. "So what you're telling me," Greg said, exhaustion in his voice, "is that your husband asked you to sign important documents? You chose to look at Pinterest instead of reading them, and now you're upset about the consequences of your own choices?" "You're supposed to be on my side," Jennifer practically shouted. "I'm not on anyone's side," Greg said firmly. "I'm a lawyer. I deal in facts and law, not feelings. And the fact is, you signed a prenuptial agreement with Clause 19B that explicitly states public acts of humiliation constitute grounds for immediate loss of inheritance rights and asset claims. You then proceeded to publicly humiliate your husband in front of 80 people. You triggered the clause. The dominoes fell. That's the end of the story." Jennifer's face crumpled. Actual tears started running down her cheeks. "There has to be something we can do. Some loophole, some technicality, anything." Greg sighed, almost looking sympathetic. "Jennifer, I've reviewed these documents with 3 other attorneys. They're airtight. Whoever drafted them knew exactly what they were doing. Every potential challenge has been preemptively addressed, every loophole closed. This is some of the most meticulous legal work I've seen in my career." "So that's it?" Jennifer said, her voice breaking. 15 years of marriage and I walk away with nothing?" "You don't walk away with nothing," Greg corrected. "According to the separation agreement, you retain your personal possessions, your vehicle, and a settlement of $50,000. That's actually fairly generous considering you violated the terms of your prenup. 50,000, Jennifer repeated, like Greg had told her she was getting 50 cents. That's nothing. That's a joke. The house alone is worth... The house that your husband purchased before you were married and maintained title on solely in his name? Greg interrupted. That house you have no claim to, never did. It was never a marital asset. Jennifer's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. What about the business? She tried desperately. I'm William's daughter. He's not going to let some stranger take over. Your husband sold his 49% stake to a charitable foundation, Greg said, pulling out another document. The sale was executed 2 months ago and filed with the state last week. It's done. Your father can choose to buy out the foundation if he wants, but that's between him and them. You have no standing in that negotiation. This is because of the toast, Jennifer said suddenly. This is all because of one stupid toast at a party. He's ruining my life over a joke. Greg leaned forward, an edge to his voice. Jennifer, let me be very clear. Your husband didn't ruin your life. You did. He spent 2 years carefully documenting every instance of public disrespect, every snide comment at dinner parties, every eye roll in front of friends, every joke at his expense. He has witnesses, he has dates, he has a pattern of behavior that establishes this wasn't one isolated incident. He pushed a stack of papers toward her. This is just a fraction of the documentation. 17 separate incidents over 2 years where witnesses heard you mock your husband publicly, calling him boring at parties, telling your book club he was adequate in every way, emphasis on adequate, making jokes about his clothes, his job, his hobbies, all documented, all witnessed, all evidence that you created a hostile marriage environment. Jennifer stared at the papers like they were written in a foreign language. People make jokes about their spouses all the time, she whispered. That's normal. There's a difference between affectionate teasing and systematic degradation, Greg said. Your husband's lawyers will argue successfully that you crossed that line repeatedly, and then you nuked it from orbit with that toast. You gave them everything they needed. So what am I supposed to do now? Jennifer asked, sounding small and defeated. Greg closed the file with finality. You sign the separation agreement. You take your 50,000, you move on. And Jennifer, he looked at her seriously, you learn from this. You learn that actions have consequences. You learn that the quiet guy you think is a pushover might just be taking notes. And you learn to read what you sign. Jennifer left Greg's office looking like she'd been hit by a truck. A week later, William drove up to my cabin. He looked like he'd aged 10 years and 7 days. His face had more lines, his eyes were bloodshot, and he was wearing jeans and a flannel shirt instead of his usual business attire. We didn't say much at first. I handed him a glass of whiskey, the good stuff, and we sat by the fire watching the flames dance while silence stretched between us. They blame me now, William said finally, his voice rough. Jennifer and Eleanor, they're saying this is my fault, that I should have seen it coming, that I should have controlled you better. I snorted. Controlled, William? I wasn't a dog on a leash. I was the guy paying for the leash. Big difference. He chuckled despite himself, dry and bitter. Yeah, I'm starting to realize that. He took a long drink, staring into the fire. She really said that toast? I nodded. Word for word. Called me an ATM who'll never be her actual soulmate in front of 80 people, including you. William's face crumpled slightly. You really looked pale when you read that note, I confirmed. Like someone opened a drain valve in your soul. We drank in silence after that. William left an hour later with guilt weighing him down. I stayed by the fire with peace settling over me like a warm blanket, watching the embers glow and feeling lighter than I had in 15 years. Weeks later, Jennifer received the final notice. Every asset, every title, every account had been legally transferred. She dropped into a chair, pale as skim milk, while her mother screeched in the background. Jennifer called me 17 times that day. Each call went straight to voicemail. Her texts started coming in waves. We need to talk. This is ridiculous. It was just a joke. Please call me. You're being unreasonable. Each one more desperate than the last. My reply? Silence. Complete, beautiful, deafening silence. Because sometimes the best response is knowing when to shut up. I sat in my truck outside the house one last time, watching through the foggy glass as lights flickered on inside. I could see shadows moving behind the curtains, probably Jennifer and her mother having another meltdown. No malice, no shouting, no dramatic music, just quiet closure. They wanted a toast? Here's mine. To the ATM who signs the checks, but never again for you. Cheers.